I've got one more story for you today, and that is the continuation of the dust-up between Donald Trump and the BBC. I want to dive into this story because it has gotten bigger. It has gotten much bigger since the last time we spoke. So check this out. We're going to dive into this story as the BBC pulled a 60 Minutes only to the negative. They actually changed what President Trump said in his speech. This is crazy. Here we go.
In the US, of course, has been Donald Trump's threat to sue the BBC now after that Panorama program edited up his January the 6th speech, trying to fit him up as encouraging violence that followed down there at those riots at Capitol Hill. Here's a reminder of what the BBC put to air.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Now, this sort of egregious editing and misleading media coverage doesn't really surprise a lot of us, but...
Hey, welcome back to Courageous Media. That is an amazing clip. Now, for those of you who have not seen that before, that is the BBC report that aired on their show Panorama, which is kind of like a 60 Minutes show, talking about Trump in his speech prior to J6. And what they did is not just egregious editing. It's not just misediting. It's not editing for time. What they did is they materially changed what the president said. It is every bit as bad as taking AI and making the president say something he never said. In this case, they took snippets of his speech from 45 minutes apart, spliced them together with multiple cuts in order to create the president saying something he never said and utterly changing the material nature of what he said. This goes beyond just, we misedited. No. This, I think, should face serious civil and possible criminal prosecution. This is nuts. This is actual defamation, slander. This is actual election interference because they changed what the president said. It is unbelievable. But the BBC is now facing serious problems over this. Now, check this out, because here's Trump on the BBC report that I want you to see before we get into the rest of the report, where we find out that they actually had some off-ramps to this and chose not to take them, and what's been happening, not obviously, but in the rest of Europe. Check this out.
Are you going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. Why not? Because they defrauded the public. And they've admitted it, and their top echelon.
Director General and the CEO.
This is within one of our great allies. This is supposedly our great ally, BBC. The government has a chunk of that one, I guess. But that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical. And they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people
We're actually going
to... It goes beyond just dishonest. It is, if there should be a criminal statute against this. You can't just, if you're editing something for time, if somebody gives a 1-minute answer and you pare it down to a 30-second answer, okay, fine, as long as you maintain the material substance of what the person said. But you cannot splice together different speeches and create something that somebody never actually said. Now, to go back, I believe the BBC has issued an apology for this.
As I put to our US contributor, Kristen Tate, Donald Trump certainly won't be taking this lying down.
Good for him. This was broadcast 1 week before the 2024 presidential election here in the United States.
Realize that. So it's blatant election interference based on when they actually broadcast it. Now, I want to get into this because I want to talk about the apology as well as the off-ramps that the BBC had to prove just how intentional this was. This was not an accident. This was intentional fraud. Check this out.
This all started with the Panorama edit. I've just got this in. This is just breaking news, Emma, which relates to this story. We're just hearing that the BBC has apologised to Donald Trump over the editing of a speech which appeared on Panorama in 2024, adding it was an error of judgment and the programme will not be broadcast again in this form on any BBC platform. So that's the BBC apologising directly to the President of the United States over the editing of a speech that appeared on Panorama in 2024.
So you've got two of the BBC heads that have already resigned over this. They've now issued a formal apology to Trump, and Trump essentially told him to go pound sand, that he's proceeding forward with the lawsuit at this point. This is awesome sauce right here. This is great stuff. Let's keep going.
Emma, by the sounds of it, there might be another apology to make.
Yeah, so that was the one that's caused such a furore over the last week or so that resulted on Sunday night in the Director General of the BBC, the big boss, Tim Davie, resigning. Also, the Chief Executive of BBC News, Deborah Turness, both of those leaving their roles. Then the BBC Chair apologising for what he called an error of judgment. So this really has been the focus of enormous attention.
And in another blow, it has come out that this was not an isolated incident.
Now we're talking about this Newsnight programme, and what's really interesting about it, according to the Telegraph, who've broken this story, a live guest straight after that speech was played out on Newsnight pointed out that it had been cut incorrectly, changing the meaning. And according to the Telegraph, nothing was done on air to say apologise or to address that.
Yeah, to alert people that it had happened.
Yeah, and then the next morning in an editorial meeting, it said that it was discussed there, concerns were raised, nothing was done then. There has been a response from the BBC.
So they had two off-ramps to this story. This is not an error in judgment. This is not an oops, we blew it, we misedited it. No. There was a live guest on their Newsnight program that talked about this Panorama story and said, no, they completely misedited Trump. They completely changed the nature of what he said. And Newsnight did nothing. They just let it slide. Then it went to an actual editorial meeting the next day where they said, look, we misedited, we changed what he said. And they said, nothing to see here. This was intentional. And they broadcast it the week before the US election. This is intentional misinformation. This is intentionally editing something to change what President Trump said. And then it is airing it prior to the election. This is what you call election interference. This is what you call criminal fraud, criminal negligence. The BBC needs to be held to account for this. Now, it gets even bigger than that. So check this out. We're going to finish this, and then we'll find out that this goes beyond the BBC.
A BBC spokesperson saying the BBC holds itself to the highest editorial standards. This matter has been brought to our attention, and we are now looking into this.
He's still proceeding forward with the lawsuit, but I want to check out this. Check the fact that this was not limited to the BBC. Just shows how bad Europe is, how far they've gone. Here we go.
Consequences for these publications on a global scale.
Well, it turns out that now it's actually not just the BBC, right? So Libs of TikTok reported that actually a Swedish company called SVT also edited the speech, as well as an Aussie company called ABC. So not the same as ABC in the United States, but an Australian company. So now we're going to see how many other businesses actually took part in this mass misinformation campaign, truly, because it led to so much lawfare. I don't think President Trump's just going to let it go.
Well, certainly the latest statement, it literally says we are not going to let this go. So, I mean, you know what's going to happen there.
Absolutely amazing. So now you've got multiple news outlets doing the exact same thing. You got an Australian news outlet, a Swedish news outlet, and the BBC all misediting Trump, changing the nature of what he said, and broadcasting it the week before the election. That is what I would call a criminal conspiracy. That is what Pam Bondi should be investigating in terms of a conspiracy against rights and election interference, election fraud, attempted election rigging. And if that's the case, there need to be people held to account. Now, most of these people are on foreign soil, but anybody in the United States who participated in this should be subject to U.S. criminal prosecution. And it may be that all of those networks are barred from transmitting in the United States. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really appreciate everybody rolling up. Please, again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you like the content, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know so that we can get ahead of this algorithm. It really helps us on YouTube. And if you would like and you really want to support the show, please join us as a member of the Courageous Army on YouTube. Just hit that join button. I really appreciate everybody rolling up. Remember, God is good and he is sovereign. Till I catch you next time.